what are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
It's the one and only.
Damn, this Snyder Cut is fire. Hey everyone, if you're like me and was underwhelmed by 2017's Justice League and then found out they were gonna pump it with millions of dollars more for a director's cut, you were probably like,
some men just want to watch the world burn.
But to my surprise, I didn't think Zack Snyder's Justice League was better, I thought it was way better. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the biggest differences between 2017's Justice League and 2021's Zack Snyder's Justice League. What they kept, left out, changed, or rearranged. So make sure to like and subscribe or the ghost of Joss Whedon's career will come after you. I mean, right off the bat, and yes, the Batman puns will get worse as the video goes along, you'll notice the change in aspect ratio. Long story short, Zack fell in love with this vertical framing while shooting the IMAX scenes in Batman v Superman and decided to use it for all of Justice League. Remember that really weird Superman mustache they had to pay thousands of dollars to remove and it still looked pretty shitty? That whole scene, which opens Whedon's Justice League, has been completely removed. In fact, almost the entire introduction has changed. Zack starts right where Batman v Superman left off, with the death of Superman, going even further by showing how his death triggered the Mother Stones to go apeshit, resulting in the arrival of Steppenwolf. Mira and the Atlanteans, along with Lex Luthor and the Amazonians, all can sense Superman's scream, something that's not seen in the 2017 cut. Well, the 2017 version tells us that Superman is dead, like the newspaper headline here, or the cut Batman and Robert scene.
It's cause they know he's dead, right?
The 2021 version shows us that he's dead, with way more time given to the characters processing his death, especially Lois, which we'll get to in a bit. The 2017 version has a gossip rag asking if Superman, Bowie, and Prince return to their planet, and an article that reads Supergerm could end humanity. Pretty glad they cut that one out of the new version. There's also this scene where a woman in a hijab is accosted by some thugs, which I assume is Whedon's way to show that crime is on the rise without Superman around. In Snyder's Justice League, you'll notice no screenplay credit is given to Joss Whedon, who took over directing in 2017 after Snyder left to deal with the death of his daughter Autumn, who he dedicated the film to. Snyder's Justice League is split up into 6 parts if you don't count the prologue and epilogue, separated by title cards. Number 1 being Don't Count on It Batman. Zack opts to start his story with Batman tracking down Aquaman, while the Whedon cut starts with Diana and the bank heist. It's during this action scene we can see some of the more subtle differences between the cuts. Whedon's color correction is more vibrant, while Snyder's is more subdued. Snyder gives us more exposition of why these guys are here, and even the music is different. Check out the 2 versions here and how Snyder opts for a more Amazonian and exotic feel when introducing Diana. The Snyder Cut is filled with different music choices. I won't get into all of them, but I'll point out some of my favorites along the way. Whedon's version also entirely cut out the moment Diana has with a young girl and tells her she can be anything she wants to be. I mean, I never imagined the guy who's alleged to treat women terribly on set to take out that scene. And not so subtle is how this scene ends in both versions. In Whedon's, the camera basically fades to white as she's about to kill the baddie, while Snyder goes all out with a huge ass explosion. One of the things I found weird about the 2017 version was why Bruce Wayne didn't take a chopper or his own personal plane to the secluded village he'll search for Aquaman. In the Snyder Cut, this is addressed with some exposition explaining that storms have kept much of the area inaccessible. The 2017 version also doesn't show us that Bruce Wayne speaks fluent Icelandic. I'm pretty sure that's what they're speaking, but let me know if I'm wrong. Plus, there's this whole weird cave drawing of the boxes, which doesn't need to really be explained in the Snyder Cut, at least not yet, as they'll be fully fleshed out in the story later on. As Aquaman leaves Bruce, the 2017 version shows him speeding away like a torpedo, where in the Snyder Cut he kinda just mysteriously vanishes, and the villagers even come around and sing a song, adding to the lore that they treat him like some sort of god. The Snyder Cut has an extra scene where Bruce arrives back from the village to chat with Alfred, who gives him the idea that maybe he shouldn't be the one to be doing all the recruiting.
Maybe a man who broods in a cave for a living isn't cut out to be a recruiter.
Perhaps the second most fleshed out storyline in the Snyder Cut aside from Cyborg's is Lois Lane's. Here we see her picking up a coffee for a security guard who keeps watch over the memorial, and we learn she visits it every day.
You don't miss a day, do you?
The whole Lois grieving Superman storyline is pretty much non-existent in the 2017 version. We even get a Security Bank of Manhattan seeks new architect newspaper heading from the Daily Planet, which sets up Bruce Wayne's later acquisition of a bank which he'll use to buy back Superman's childhood home. Cut from the Snyder version is Batman discussing with Alfred what those boxes could possibly be, and that scene with the Flash where he puts permanent marker all over a dude's face. This is substituted with a completely new Flash introduction scene, which includes hot dogs, so you'll want to stick around for that. Steppenwolf's retrieval of the first box signals a big difference between the two versions. Not only is Steppenwolf's armor different, but the fight scene varies in some pretty drastic ways. In both versions, Queen Hippolyta retrieves the box, but in the Snyder Cut we see her stop for a moment to help a fellow Amazonian who says to run with the cube and honor their deaths by sealing the gates. Hippolyta even goes back to help another Amazonian, risking her life doing so. But where things get drastically different is after Hippolyta escapes. In the 2017 version, Steppenwolf cuts his way through the stronghold and continues his chase, while in the Snyder Cut the entire stronghold crashes into the sea, Steppenwolf and his parademons along with it, only to emerge later from the depths. Also, the Snyder Cut has Steppenwolf completely throwing a horse and being attacked by a dozen arrows, which he easily shrugs off with his new armor. I guess this is also a good time to mention that the Snyder Cut has an R rating, while Justice League is PG-13, and as we'll see later, Snyder's is more violent. When one of the Amazons attaches a rope to an arrow, the Snyder Cut has her eyes all going starlight from the boys, while the 2017 version has no such effect. With one of the boxes now in his possession, the Snyder Cut varies wildly from the 2017 version and how Steppenwolf is portrayed. His motivations in the Snyder Cut are much more clear, and we actually see who he's reporting to and why he's doing what he's doing. It's also explained early on why he chooses this abandoned type of Chernobyl town rather than 3/4 of the way through in Justice League, and Snyder, thank God, got rid of that random family storyline which influenced the plot in no way. I will give it to the Snyder Cut for those awesome product placements. Gotta pay for those VFX reshoots somehow. The largest storyline to change is arguably Victor Stone's, aka Cyborg, who in the 2017 movie spends half of it in the shadows brooding. In the Snyder Cut we get to see his backstory and how his dad's use of the box brought him back to life and ties into the main storyline. The 2017 version has almost no emotional arc for Cyborg, with the whole tape recorder speech his father Silas gives him non-existent in it. Speaking of Silas, there's his work at Star Labs, along with his partner Ryan Choi, who isn't even in the 2017 version. In the Snyder Cut he ends up becoming the director of nanotechnology at Star Labs after Silas's death, a death that doesn't occur in Whedon's version. In the Snyder Cut we have a far simpler setup for how the Justice League finds Steppenwolf's location in the final act. Silas learns that he can heat up alien hardware to become the hottest thing on the planet, which is what he does to the box so the Justice League can trace its heat signature. Talk about hotboxing. Silas gives up his life so that the Justice League can track Steppenwolf's location. This is way more emotional than the 2017 version, which just says Cyborg track it down since the 3 boxes give off energy. In the Snyder Cut, Diana investigates the location of the arrow her mother, Queen Hippolyta, shot from Theramisia. Using it, she finds a hidden tomb depicting the great battle thousands of years ago between Darkseid and the old heroes, a battle in the 2017 version which does happen, but the villain is replaced with Steppenwolf, and we'll get to more about that in a bit. Aquaman's decision to join the Justice League is more fleshed out in the Snyder Cut as well, with full-on scenes with Vulko not present in the 2017 version, who warns Aquaman of the impending doom, even asking him to take his mother's trident, which he does not. Aquaman will later use his mother's trident, making the scene where we first see him use it and hold back the water far more emotional. He is simultaneously joining the League while embracing his mother, who he previously disowned. There's also way more slow-mo, shirtless Jason Momoa wave crashing shots, and a new song to go with it. And Snyder did away with this weird shot of green algae from the 2017 version after he saved the fisherman from the storm. This is supposed to be parademon blood, but a lot of people, including myself, were initially confused while watching the original. One of the other big differences in the Snyder Cut is the addition of Ares, played by David Thewlis, who you may remember from Wonder Woman. He's actually the one who gives Darkseid his injury, forcing him to retreat, and this injury is super bloody in comparison to the 2017 version, yet another reason why it's rated R. The Snyder Cut also gives us extended scenes of what happened to the boxes after they were collected by the 3 races, and later on we'll we'll even see how the box that was held by man was found by the Nazis in a church in France during World War II, picked up by the Allies, and how it eventually made its way to Silas. Perhaps one of the biggest deleted scenes to be included is the introduction of the Flash in the Snyder Cut, whereas in the 2017 version, the first real scene we see him in is him visiting his dad in prison. The Snyder introduction sets up a lot for this character, showing us how he's struggling to find a job and antisocial, literally running away after saving a girl he clearly has his eyes on. In the Whedon version, Steppenwolf moves straight on to Atlantis for the second box, but the Snyder Cut sees him interrogating some Atlanteans to learn of its location. He even uses this spider thing to read people's minds, later using it on Silas, which the 2017 version doesn't have. In between these scenes, the Snyder Cut is littered with shots depicting Lois's grief as she deals with Superman's death, like how she goes through his things or lays awake at night knowing he's not next to her. Let's not forget the addition of a pregnancy test in Lois's bedside drawer, where they could go anywhere with this. This culminates in an emotional heart-to-heart with Martha Kent, where Martha says she needs to let go. Compare this to the scene in Whedon's cut where they talk more about Martha losing her house than the death of the man who connects them so dearly. Of course, the Snyder Cut has this added twist where the Martian Manhunter takes the form of Martha. He seems to be orchestrating something far bigger, and we'll see him introduce himself to Batman in the epilogue. He's not seen in the 2017 version. We also get a lengthier Cyborg origin story where we see the crash that killed his mother and how his father put him back together. We also get an idea of just how powerful Cyborg is, his father telling him he could send out all the world's nuclear weapons with just a thought. What do we get in the Whedon cut? Flying a foot off the ground in the apartment. In the Snyder Cut, this happens on the roof, and Cyborg is given way more thrusters. Plus these robotic arm type things not present in the 2017 version. The Snyder Cut also gives us a glimpse at Cyborg's humanity, like how he gives a poor woman $100,000, a woman whose apartment was foreclosed by Gotham Bank. After finding out Diana is watching him, the way he gets her attention is different in both versions. In 2017, he conversates with her over the computer in the Batcave, while the Snyder Cut has him hacking the same computer but with the message "meet here now." The Snyder Cut also does a better job at tracking where the box of man is, seeing it at Cyborg's apartment, then him burying it at his mother's grave, and later bringing it to the Justice League to resurrect Superman. In the Whedon cut, he just kind of arrives and is like, hey, here it is. Next up is the battle between Mira and Steppenwolf at the Atlantean stronghold. The Snyder Cut is far lengthier with a major focus on Mira. This is contrasted with the Whedon cut where most of the fighting is done between Aquaman and Steppenwolf, and we don't get this cool bit of exposition where Steppenwolf has Mira pinned against the wall, or Mira using this power to suck blood out of his face. Yeah, the Snyder Cut is way bloodier. Now I gotta play this for you guys. Check out the difference in the two cuts with the music played when the Justice League arrives to save Silas.
Boring.
One left me like a limp noodle, and the other I was like, hell yeah, baby, let's go. There are some other big differences how this whole rescue operation goes, namely surrounding the Flash. In the Whedon version, he has this long speech with Batman about how he's never fought before, so he's relegated to saving the hostages. This is removed in the Snyder Cut, and he kind of leads the hostages by themselves instead of manually picking them up one by one. Plus, there's a scene where he saves them all from flying debris. And thank God they got rid of this totally unnecessary scene where the Flash lands on Wonder Woman and it looks like he's humping her, directed by Joss Whedon. The Whedon cut also does away with any of the emotion that comes with Cyborg saving his father, whereas in the Snyder Cut we get,
Wasn't sure you'd come. You're my father.
Steppenwolf ends up escaping and contacting Darkseid, where he tells him that Earth is where the anti-life equation is located, carved into the very surface of the world. This equation, as he calls it, is the ultimate weapon for controlling all life throughout the multiverse. This is not in the 2017 version. With the Justice League in possession of the third box, we get more backstory on what exactly it is. Silas called it a change machine, as it can reinstate particles. They use the analogy of a house burning down. The house doesn't disappear, its particles just turn into something else, like ash and smoke. By this logic, the change machine can be used to bring Superman back. In the Whedon cut, they're more like, hey, we can use this to jumpstart Superman, and away they go. Minor difference, but when the Flash arrives to Bruce Wayne's Batcave, he flashes around to check it like a giddy schoolboy, which doesn't happen in the Snyder Cut. The grave digging scene here is also extended. In Whedon's cut, we never get to see the interaction between Aquaman and Diana here. In fact, they're never even shown. I found this interaction between the two a lot more genuine than the Whedon version, where Aquaman accidentally sits on the lasso of truth and professes how he thinks Wonder Woman is cute.
Oof. You're gorgeous.
The decision to use the box is questioned in the Snyder Cut by Alfred, who is concerned its power could have terrible consequences.
If you start playing with this little box of tricks, I mean, it could be the end of everything.
In the Whedon Cut, this is brought up by Diana.
Technology is like any other power. Without reason, without heart, it destroys us.
So the team has to bring Superman's corpse to the Kryptonian ship at Star Labs. In the Whedon Cut, they kind of just walk in, there's hardly any security except for the guy at the front gate, and they go about their business. In the Snyder Cut, it's a whole big deal. They have to create a diversion and get everyone who's working there out by creating an alarm. We also get a way more in-depth view of what's in the Kryptonian ship, like these different Superman suits and even a dead body. Superman's resurrection in Snyder's version is intercut with shots of Lois visiting his memorial for the last time, bringing back that emotional weight to the scene and setting up how she'll bring him back to reality. The plan to jumpstart Superman is the same in both versions, but just before Barry is about to use his electrical charge, Cyborg is bombarded with images of the future. Now, I won't get into too much details of what these images mean, but it's clear Snyder is setting up huge things for the DC universe. We see dead Diana, dead Aquaman who's wearing the King's crown, Superman hovering over a dead body, Darkseid consoling Superman, and Superman holding Batman's cowl. It really sets up that Superman could actually be turning evil for good. While the Justice League battles Superman, in the Whedon version, Steppenwolf comes in and yoinks the cube and just takes off. As mentioned before, this Snyder Cut sees him taking it from Silas. Superman goes off with Lois, and we get a more fleshed out version of this reunion and this magical line.
He spoke.
The man's been dead for days. One of the big differences between the two versions is knowing Superman will come and help the Justice League. In the 2017 version, it's a surprise when he arrives to take on Steppenwolf, but the Snyder Cut, we know he's eventually going to come.
They wanted me back for a reason. I need to find out why.
Then we get this great scene where he gets into a new dark suit as the voices of his real dad, Jor-El, and his adopted dad, Jonathan Kent, give voiceover on how he can be a force for good. There's also this scene in the Whedon Cut where Diana pops a bruised Bruce Wayne's shoulder back into place, and we find out it was Bruce's idea to bring in Lois to turn Superman. Not at all what happens in the Snyder Cut. In deciding what to do next, the Snyder Cut also took out the scene where Aquaman gets really upset at Cyborg for his malfunction, which set off Superman. The team sets out with a plan, which is a lot different than Whedon's version. Here, Batman will destroy the dome, while the Flash creates a band of energy around the city, while Cyborg attempts to desynchronize the cubes. The city itself is also devoid of citizens, while in the Whedon Cut you'd get this weird hodgepodge of some shots having no people at all, while others you'll see them screaming for their lives. The background sky is totally different too, Whedon opting to keep it orangey red while Snyder keeps it night. Superman even visits Alfred in the Snyder Cut, likely to find out where the team is, again not in the Whedon Cut. And with Superman's arrival, these two versions differ extremely. In the Whedon Cut, Superman blows cold air on Steppenwolf's axe and Diana breaks it. The cubes are pulled apart and Steppenwolf is defeated. There's also this mini side story where the Flash and Superman save the civilians. This is all thrown in the garbage by Snyder, who gives us something far more thrilling while setting up big things for the DCU. The Snyder version sees Superman beating the crap out of Steppenwolf, even ripping off his horn, but the Justice League ultimately fails, and Barry, who was shot and couldn't pull off the energy blast, has to do something he's not supposed to do. Go faster than the speed of light and move back time. We see as he moves so fast the particles start to reform, and when he touches Barry, well, he's given a weird post-apocalyptic family welcome who want him to stay with him forever. He refuses and we're transported back a few moments before the blast that would kill everyone, allowing the entire team to take a stab at Steppenwolf, throwing him back through the portal to Darkseid's homeworld. Something the Snyder Cut made me feel at the end was that they were finally a team, while simultaneously setting up a conflict for a sequel, Darkseid coming to Earth to take the anti-life equation with his armada. Snyder's epilogue and post-credit scenes are more fleshed out as well. In the 2017 version, we see how Cyborg is good with his dad now, even though little time was spent on that. Aquaman goes back to the water, Flash runs around town, Wonder Woman goes back to stopping criminals, and Superman reveals his traditional colored S. The Whedon Cut also has that Lex Luthor post-credit scene both at the asylum and on his yacht. The yacht version here, however, has Lex Luthor telling Deadshot,
"To put it plainly, shouldn't we have a league of our own?"
While in the Snyder Cut, he says this:
"If you want the Batman, here is something that can help you. His name is Bruce Wayne.
This is great for the Snyder version since in that post-apocalyptic scene we see Deadshot has teamed up with Batman. The Snyder version also does away with the Superman and Flash racing scene. In Snyder's epilogue we see Cyborg in front of the grave of his parents, Batman catching up with some bad guys, Superman's Gray S, and arguably the most talked about change from the 2017 version, the scene involving Batman and the Joker in a post-apocalyptic world. I won't get into too much of analysis of the scene, that's for a different video, but we learned lots of cool things, like how Darkseid is taken over, something bad has happened to Aquaman, Lois and Harley Quinn are dead, alternate timelines, and the arrival of Superman who looks like he wants to kick the crap out of all of them. So those are some of my favorite differences between Whedon and Snyder's Justice Leagues. What did you think of the Snyder Cut, and which differences were your favorite that I didn't include? I want to hear them in the comments below. Thanks for watching everyone, make sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.